Here we are again. And when I say again, I really do mean again, because I was here yesterday and I filmed this blog yesterday. Now, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll know I've had a few computer disasters. In fact, I've had a bereavement in the computer department. Filmed this yesterday, went down, got it edited, was within a few minutes of finishing, and my long-suffering computer died, as in whew, dead. Lost all the files. I'd taken them off the memory card and put them on the computer rather than just copying them. I've tried everything to retrieve them until about 11:30 last night. I was down there at 6:30 this morning trying to get the stuff working. It ain't working. I've nicked Harry's computer. The middle boy's got a big gaming PC, so I've had that. I've reloaded all my programs. I think it's all working. I think I've done as much as I can, but I can't recover the files, so we're back up here. We're going to do it all over again, which isn't a problem. Not stressed at all, honestly. But there you go. Breathe and start from new. Firstly, messages. Quite a lot of messages, as always, all good. A couple are more important than the others. Very important to Stuart and Catherine Creed. They messaged to say they've just had a new arrival, had a baby girl. Now, he did message me a couple of days ago and said, would I give his missus a shout out? I said, wait till the baby arrives. Well, it's here. So, well done, Catherine, and welcome to the world, a young one that hasn't got a name yet, apparently. Second message I'm going to mention is Phil Thompson. I know, gave him a shout last week. If you're out there, get in touch. He probably hasn't heard that episode yet, but he'd already watched one of the earlier blogs. Now, I had people from Thailand, because he lives in Thailand. I had a guy message me whose mate lives in Thailand, and he'd phoned him and he knew Phil, tried to get hold of him but couldn't get hold of him. I had lots of people on the case. And as it happens, he just saw one of these on YouTube and flung me a message. He did tell me that he'd actually messaged me a couple of times before on previous blogs back when we were fishing, remember that? And I hadn't seen the messages. How typical is that? But anyway, he's alive and well, still living in Thailand. No elephant, unfortunately. I really hope the elephant rumour was true. He said he does sponsor a herd, as in, I think that the money that from the sponsorships goes to the farmers to sort of when the elephants eat all their crops or whatever, you know. So that money goes to the farmers so that the elephants don't get harmed and they can eat what they like. No lockdown in Thailand, he's still fishing and he's still got his old Mitchell 410s, the original ones, which doesn't surprise me because those things are bulletproof, they just last forever. In fact, I used to have Mitchell 300s, which were very similar, a little bit slower retrieve and black as opposed to blue of the 410s. I've got a picture of them, well, not of mine, but I've got a picture of a 300. Totally indestructible until I get hold of them. I had them for years, mind, and I could strip them down practically blindfold. There's nothing to them inside. There was about 3 cogs and a slide that went up and down. And I used to regularly take them apart, fill them full of Vaseline, pack them back together so that they'd work nice and smooth. And then one day I was working at London Country Buses, stripping down bus engines. Didn't have to be a mechanic, just needed some spanners and a big hammer. And my mate Jeff, he was a sprayer. He worked at the other end of the sort of factory or whatever you call it. So I decided it would be a great idea to strip my reels down and him spray them for me. Now, we all know London buses are red. I didn't want them red, but this was London Country Buses, which were handily green. Green with a cream, they call it a coach stripe, but just a stripe down the side. So I stripped down my reels, sent them up the line to Jeff. He primed them up, sandblasted them, primed them up, painted them this lovely green with all little coach marks on it, you know, all this cream sort of trims on it. They came back. I hadn't really allowed for the fact of the primer and the paint and everything else adding thickness inside and out the casing. Put them all back together, went to turn the handle, and that was it. They were dead, seized solid, never worked again. So I can destroy anything. I can destroy computers, I can destroy cars, I can destroy fishing tackle. If it can be broken, believe me, I can break it. When I talk about this, the old tackle I used to use, you know, they all were hanging apart type of gear that I was known for. You know, hand repaired reels and broken rods and what have you. Handmade bivvy sides, and you know, a lot of the tackle was handmade back there. You couldn't just buy everything you wanted, so you used to make it yourself. My biggest regret is that I've got no photos of it. You know, I've got thousands of prints, you know, right through the decades, but hardly any, 1, 2, 3 of my tackle. And the reason for that was we'd never have dreamt of taking photos of fishing tackle. Like now, you know, you sit there, you're bored, you get your phone out, go clink, take a picture of your nice shiny setup, put it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. You know, that the social media didn't exist then, and photography, when you did get your camera out, quite often it was stashed in the motor or whatever. You only got your camera out to record something to show your mates who weren't there at the time, and the only thing worthy of that really were fish, which is why I've got tons and tons of catch pics, but very little sort of scenic pics. I mean, if you took a picture of your rods and then you've got them in a packet of photos, and your mate comes round and you say, oh, this is a fish I had last week, and that's the fish I had the week before. Oh, and there's my rods 3 days ago. They'd look at you like you're mad, excuse me. You know, why would I want to see what your tackle looked like 3 days ago or a week ago or a month ago? It just wasn't the thing. But I do regret it, because it would be great now to be able to ping up some, you know, proper sort of swim shots from back then. Like I say, I have got a couple, but really not very many at all in the whole grand scheme of things. I should have taken pictures of my cars as well, because I'm always going on about my cars. And I'm going to start with, that's you know, where we're back to at Wraysbury was just after I bought one of the most interesting cars I think I've ever had. I left you last time with blowing up one of the many and smashing keys and what have you. But I just bought a Volvo 245 DL Estate. Now, you can look it up on Google if you want to see what it looks like. I might even try and get a picture of one on Google and put it up here, but I'm not promising, because computers at the moment, not my friends. It was green. It was a few different greens, to be honest. Quite a lot of it was sort of hand painted in. It was a behemoth. It was like a tank, this thing. They were renowned for being the most solid car on the road. Huge, great big long thing. Weighed a ton. Back in those days, I knew a lot of people around Crawley, where I lived, who had garages and, you know, a lot of scrap motors out the back for parts and what have you. So I went round to see one of them, and he had this Volvo parked out the back, and I looked. Had a smashed front wind, well, not smashed, but like a spider's web front windscreen, which appealed to me. I thought that looks like it needs a bit of love, a bit of TLC. I said, what's the story with that motor out the back then? He said, oh God, he said, that's clapped, that's had it. I said, does it run? He went, yeah. I said, how much? Said, 50 quid if you want it. I said, okay, I'll have it. So he actually wrote out a receipt for me, which he never done. And the only reason he done that was so that he could put 2 big black lines across the middle and put sold as scrap written across the receipt, just to cover himself. He used to have an array of warning lights in front. I mean, big, square, not like these little fancy things nowadays. Like big, square, like illuminated, an orange one, a red one, a yellow one. And they used to just flash all the time. And there was like oil warning light, hydraulic fluid warning light, brake fluid warning light, this, everything. Behind the seat, I had a row of bottles, and you regularly had to stop and open whichever reservoir it was and top it up. If you parked like on the pavement somewhere and came out and looked, there'd be all these different colour patches of different sort of fluids all over the floor. It looked like a sieve. The back door, like when you open a back door of an estate, obviously you're supposed to have those little hydraulic rams. This didn't have any. And you had to be like Jeff Capes to get the back door open. It was like weightlifting, you know, you had to deadlift it up to your shoulders and then push it up into the air. It was a big, thick, chunky back door. And I had about a 3 or 4 foot probably length of wood batten. So you'd get that ready, and then you deadlift the door up, and then you had to slam this bit of batten in there, which was it was so heavy, the door, it was always bent to almost snapping point. and you had to very carefully get your gear out or put your gear in without knocking this, otherwise it'd chop you in half if it come down. So anyway, I've got my new motor. I've loaded up my bits and pieces because I've got a bit of new tackle now. The insurance shelled out on me stolen tackle, but not on Keith's car, unfortunately. Loaded it all in the motor, and I'm off to Wraysbury. I'd been off away from the lake for a good couple of weeks, I suppose. What with one thing and another, what with all the thefts and the breakdowns and everything else that had happened. Somewhere along the line, the sieve, the boat, that had been nicked as well. Basically, everything had been destroyed, nicked, gone, broken, whatever. So it took a couple of weeks to get everything back together. I'd got a new inflatable orange boat that had more holes than anything else. It was just, it cost me about a tenner. I got my new Volvo, got a bit of tackle together, and I was back off to Wraysbury. Now, during the couple of weeks that I'd been away, Phil had been doing really well. I mean, he'd been doing really well anyway. He'd had, 3 fish when we last spoke. And during a couple of weeks off, he managed to bag 2 more, both from the Rocky Barge area. Now, I read a little bit in his book about it. I sort of did me research, if you like. That's not the story I remember. He was casting. He'd seen some fish out of the Rocky Barge out towards the middle, and he was casting out there, and the boats were getting in his way. So after they'd gone, he managed to get his baits in position. I seem to remember him telling me that what had happened was he'd taken his rig out in a boat. Maybe he didn't want to write that in the book because Phil didn't do much of that. I might be getting 2 stories mixed up here, but my one's better. When we used to go out in the boat with a rig, we'd put the lead in our teeth like that and just row out to where we needed to be, take it out, lower it down, bait up and come back. So he'd put the lead in his teeth and he'd rowed out and he got nearly to where he wanted to be and he'd run out of line, which is well believable on his little 410s, and it just gone donk. So he'd come back a few feet, so he'd have a little bit on the spool, thrown it over the edge, thrown a handful of bait over the edge and gone back to the Rocky Barge. That's the story I remember. Anyway, whichever one's true. The next morning or later on that day, whatever, doesn't matter, he had a bite out there. It's very, very deep out there. It's like the deepest section of the lake. And he had a bite and he had a big, long mirror, proper Wraysbury mirror, leany looking fish with a great big head, and then a tapering off body and just a few scales and this huge, great big mouth. I think it weighed 34 pounds, around there anyway. And he's taken one look at it and taken one look at this mouth and said, we're going to call that, I wasn't there, but he'd said he's going to call that the Hoover. And the poor thing became known as the Hoover and remained the Hoover for the rest of its days. Became quite a famous fish. I don't know its history before Phil caught it. I think Pete Springate had caught it. I think there might be a photo of him out in the lake somewhere lowering this fish back in. And then the next week, I believe it was, in similar circumstances, he had another fish from there, which was a proper bizarre one, a proper Wraysbury Odden. It was a common of 31 pounds, but it had the shape of a mirror, but quite a distorted one. I've actually got a photo of that. I've not got a photo of the Hoover, but I have a photo of this common. Real odd-looking fish that nobody seemed to know. But that wasn't so unusual for Wraysbury. Like I said before, you had the gang of fish that were known, and then you had these real oddens, some that get seen and never get caught, or like Phil's, one capture, didn't get caught again after that, just would crop up once on the bank, no one would know what it was, put it back and just disappear again. We regularly used to see fish in there, and you'd see them up close and you'd think, you haven't got a clue what they are. They're not one of the known characters, but they're big enough that they should be. But they're just sort of totally unknowns. And there was other fish. There was one, for example, I believe it was called Johnny Allen's. I can't remember whether it was 27 or 29, but that was the relevant weight. I think it was its only capture. And that fish was very, very noticeable because it was almost black and white. It didn't have koi or anything in it, but it had that coloration, real pale skin with real dark back and dark markings. And Steve Alcott had once shown me a photo of this fish. And straight away I thought, well, I'm going to recognise that. As I say, it was a real standout fish. Now, once in the 3 years I spent on Wraysbury, I saw that fish. As far as I know, no one else ever saw it. I was standing up in a boat one day, and 3 fish came towards me, and they lowered just a little bit, just under the boat, nearly scraped the bottom of the boat. They were that close. And the one in the middle, 100% was this fish, this Johnny Allen's 29. And it went clearly under the boat, and I just thought, you know, wow, it's still here, because you start to think these fish must be dead, you know. I think it was 7 years before my sighting when it was caught, and it was never seen or caught again. Another bloke on there, Plum bloke, he caught a fish that we nicknamed the Egg because it had a big sort of drop belly, which I have got a photo of that one. I think that was a low 30 as well. And again, nobody knew the fish. It just appeared, and then you put it back, and it just disappeared. And to me, that was a lot of the appeal of Wraysbury. You know, you've got your known target, so you know there's big fish in there that are catchable, proper big fish that are catchable. But you're always thinking, you know, I'd love to get one of them odd ones. In fact, in the end, they became more of a target for like me, Phil, Tench bloke, you know, a few of the others, than the big ones. You know, you weren't sitting there thinking, oh, I hope I get Mary's mate or Mary. You were thinking, oh, what if I get an odd one? You know, they were like the absolute pinnacle of achievement with the Wraysbury odd ones. I appear to have gone off on a tangent again, don't I? I've got all these notes on the floor. I don't even look at them. I look at the first line of the first one, and then I forget what I'm supposed to be saying, and I just rabbit on about whatever. My kids call it chatting shit, so that's what I've been doing, chatting shit. I was supposed to be in the Volvo, wasn't I? So, I'm in the Volvo. It's pissing down with rain. In fact, it had been raining for most of the time I'd not been at the lake, so for about 2 weeks. Time of year must have been mid-September, something like that, probably around my lucky week. Or so I thought. So I'm going down the motorway in my Volvo. It's one windscreen wiper. Luckily it was on the driver's side. The other one had fallen off years before. Ignoring all the lights flashing on and off on the dashboard. I've got up to Wraysbury and I pulled into the Douglas Lane. Gone through the little gate, parked up, looked out from the first swim, which is called the Route Nightmare, and the wind and the rain was just pounding in there. It looked horrible. So I've gone across the little green, and there's always a burnt out motor or two, usually like in the grass there. Gone past that, through the little gap, and come out on Douglas Lane Point, a little peninsula right down the end. And again, the weather's coming in. I was soaked. I'd only gone, it was probably 200, 300 yards. I was absolutely drenched, you know. When the bushes get so wet, they all hang over the path, and you're sort of pushing your way through and stinging nettles, and everything's, it's like a car wash, you know. It's like the rollers on a car wash. By the time you get anywhere, just drowned, absolutely drowned. The dog was dripping. I thought, I don't really fancy it around here in all this weather. So we came back, got back in the old Green Demon, out the Douglas Lane, and you've got to drive out and right round out the Douglas Lane, round the whole village, past the Percy and the Chinese, past the other pub, and you go right out onto Welly Road, and it takes you, you know, miles away from the lake, and then you come back in at the Green Gates, which is the Sailing Club Peninsula. So I've come in through the Green Gates and gone up the Sailing Club Peninsula, and right at the end is the Dredger Bay. Now, I thought that'd be perfect, the Dredger Bay, because the winds and the rain's coming from behind me. And there's 2 swims in there. The left-hand one fishes quite shallow water, so I didn't really fancy that. But the right-hand one, it's quite high off the water. It's like a track goes there, and it becomes, when you get almost into the swim, it becomes quite gravelly. So you've got this high, and it's a bend. It's like a left-hand bend around some bushes of gravel. On your right-hand side, it drops down about 3 or 4 foot into the edge of the lake. So the lake laps in, it makes a little point, if you like. So you've got this bit of lake around there on your right, and you have to reverse it, because if you're driving forwards, obviously you've got to unload your car from the back. The path is quite narrow, so you can't actually get round your own motor. So once you've reversed round there, no one can see you. You come round this bush, and then you've blocked off your swim, which is always a good plan on Wraysbury, because all sorts of stuff happens, as I've told you already. So you're out of view, you're blocked in the swim, and then this high bit of gravel slopes down like a beach almost, real gentle slope into the water, and then it's shallow in the edge, and then it drops over the end, and then you've got a deep water swim in front of you with an island on your right and a big island out at the back and the dredger round to your left. So you've got this lovely bit of deep water to fish, and it's in a crossroads. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 channels come into the dredger bay. It's like a hub, if you like, you know, like the middle of a bike wheel with spokes, but you've got these river spokes that come off, 4 of them. So it's an ideal spot, really. It really is an interception point. So anyway, I've come down in the old Volvo. I'd say Volvo, isn't it? In the old Volvo. Pulled round and then started to back into the swim. Bear in mind, like I said, it's pissing down with rain. The ground, it's all mud until you hit this little gravel bend, but even that's running in water. So I've come down and I've reversed round. You have to reverse round the corner into the swim. And as I've gone round the corner in this big hefty old tank, it's just started sliding sideways towards the lake. Oh no. If you dab the brakes, it's worse. I tried it, it was worse. I tried steering into it, it made no difference. I'd got no steering, I was just on this sort of skid pad, if you like. Just had to sit there and let it happen. I was only doing about 2 miles an hour, but there's a lot of weight in this Volvo, and it just slid sideways. Well, it was that way actually. It slid sideways, and 2 of the wheels, the front left and rear left, just went donk donk over the side, like over the drop off into the lake, or over the lake. Car went like that, bonk on its side, just a bit, and the floor pan hit the drop off, and it stopped, wedged. I was like, this is proper dodgy. It reminded me of that, the film The Italian Job, with the 3 minis where they go into Italy and nick the gold bullion, put it in the back of a coach, and on the way home at the end of the film, the coach slides and comes off of a mountain road, and the back wheels are teetering like that with the gold bullion sliding up and down. Well, that was my Volvo. It was sort of teetering on the edge of falling into Wraysbury 1. So anyway, I got out, I got the dog out. It's a bit hairy getting out because I thought that's going to be less weight on the side I want it to hold down. As I get out, it might just go. So I got the dog, and me and Fatty had jumped straight out. It stayed put. So I've gone round and looked from the other side, and sure enough, we're nearly in the swim. We're half in the swim. We're nearly in the lake, to be honest. One wheel, the back wheel, is probably, 2 foot above the water, just in the air, just spinning. The front wheel's more on the slope of the mud, but in the bushes, and there was no way that was coming out in those conditions with just me. There was no way that was happening. So I popped the back up, put the bit of old wood in there, and very gingerly got the gear out, because not only did I not want the door to come down, I didn't want the whole bloody lot to slide into the lake. I've got the gear out, set up my bivvy and all that, shut the door, thought I'll sort that out in the morning. Anyway, just before I cast out, I thought food. I was going to go to the Chinese, drive to the Chinese, because it's right back the other side of the village, and I thought, I can't drive anywhere. I'm not walking all the way to the Chinese in the pissing rain. But the off licence, I thought the off licence is close. They're bound to have something to eat. They're going to have lots of stuff to drink, but they're bound to have something to eat. So I just walked. It's not very far, quarter mile. Walked up to the offie, got myself carrier bag of lager, crisps, peanuts, chocolate. One of everything that was edible in an off licence, basically, and some beer. Gone back. Chucked the rods out and had me sort of high carb dinner, washed it down with a few beers and thought, right, that'll do me. Everything else I can sort out tomorrow. I hadn't got a clue how I was going to sort it out, but I thought everything else can wait till tomorrow. Following morning, I'd had no action in the night. First thing I heard was laughter, lots of laughter. One person laughing their head off. I thought that sounds like a tench bloke. So got out of my pit, gone round the side of the bivvy, and he's walking around my motor, just chuckling away to himself. It's like, what on earth have you done here, Doug? I'm like, had a bit of an accident. Wraysbury disaster, we used to call him. Had a Wraysbury disaster, TB. I said, can you give us a hand to get it out? He's like, well, we can try, but how? I mean, he's got a motor, but he had a 650cc, what was it, a Nissan, some sort of, it was a little, I can't remember what they called them now. It was like a small panel, like a transit van, but tiny. tiny little thing. We used to call it orca, because it used to, whenever you'd pull up to your swim and turn it off and get out, for the next hour, it used to make these, just like a whale, it would make these sort of noises. We never found out where they came from or what they were, but it was always making these orca noises. Probably a little bit better than my impression of an orca, actually. But yeah, 650cc Nissan thing. There was no way that was pulling a tank out of Wraysbury 1. It wasn't even worth trying. But we did try a few bits of wood under the wheels and revving it up, and the wheels just spun, and it weren't happening. So we got in the Orca and we drove over to Horton, it's only up the road, and I got Keith and Reg in both their cars. Keith had a Volkswagen Passat, and Reg had an Escort van. They've driven over. We've got some old rope out of Dell's dungeon before we've come over, and we parked them in front of me. Unfortunately, they've got to be on the mud because the gravel's run out here, and we run the two bits of rope off the back of theirs, one onto the front right of mine, one onto the front left. But it was obviously going to need me driving as well, so we've gone off through the bushes, and I've found an old sign, and it says, I think it said Wraysbury 1 boating regatta next Sunday or something, and it was years old. It was all just been chucked in the bushes, so we got that out and snapped it into big sections and rammed them under the wheels, rammed them under Keith's and Reggie's wheels as well, because they was obviously going to slide in the mud. Everyone's revved up like the beginning of Formula 1. Flag's gone down and we've all gone together. Well, we didn't actually go anywhere. All that happened was the pieces of wood, these big pieces of hardboard, came flying out just like ready to decapitate someone. They went all over the place, and mud, a big plume of mud came up and hit the front of my windscreen. Loads of it came in the window and hit me. It was a disaster. The Volvo, it didn't even twitch, it didn't move at all. So we decided that this was a non-starter as well. Undid all the ropes, got back in the Orca, me and TB. There's a farm not far away, so we've driven to this farm, and sure enough, farmer man's out there in his tractor. So I sort of hailed him down, walked over there, and I thought, I don't know how this is going to go. You know, I've only got a tenner, willing to give him the tenner. And I've gone over there, started to sort of explain the situation, and he said, I think I know you. He said, I'm a mate of Phil Thompson's. I was like, oh, happy days, you know. He still took me tenner, mind. But sure enough, he followed us back in the tractor, put a chain on it. Within 1 second, one pull, and the Volvo was just right up there on the peninsula. So, thanks very much. Everyone disappeared. Farmer went, Keith went, Reg went. It was just me and TV left. So I packed up, loaded all my gear in the motor, and just up the way on the diving board fishing into the North Lake, there was a fella fishing. So we'd driven up behind him and said, can you keep an eye on the gear, because you didn't really dare leave it, you know, sort of unattended. Not for long anyway. And we decided we were going to go for a great big walk around the lake and figure out where to fish. It was a nicer day by now. The rain had stopped. It weren't bad weather that day. And we thought we'd have a wander about and sort of get settled in somewhere for the rest of the week. Now, as I've said before, there were various ways to walk around Wraysbury. There was the way that involved the newsagents and a Tangle Twister ice cream. There was the way that involved the off licence, and that ended up sitting on the NatWest Sailing Club lawn with some beers, watching the lake. And there was the way we went. Now, the way we went involves going round No Carp Bay, and that takes you out round the back, past some big houses, and into the swimming pool, which, as I've said before, is sort of almost in the village green. As you come back round the swimming pool, on your right you've got the football pitch, and on your left you've got a section of the lake heading down towards Bryant's Bay. Now then, you've got a choice. You can either go left into Bryant's Bay, or you can cut across the football pitch, as we did, and you go straight into the public bar of the Perseverance. So we decided that was probably the route for the day. So we've gone over the road, into the pub. And like I say, it was sort of mid to late September, something like that. It was quite chilly. The sun had come out, it stopped raining, but it wasn't what you'd call warm. Therefore, they got the fire going. They all in the public bar in the Percy back in those days. It was a proper public bar, and they'd have a big old roaring log fire going all winter in there. looked really nice. So we'd got a Guinness in there, it was amazing. So me, TB and Fat Sam had gone in there. And I remember there was some old boy at the bar. It's one of them pubs where you get, old George will have his stall and no one can sit on George's stall, and he'll have his own tankard behind the bar. And then you'll have Fred's corner, no one can sit in Fred's corner, and he'll have a different style of tankard, the old window jugs that the old boys used to like, one of them sort of pubs. And one of these old boys at the bar started having a go at me for mistreating my dog, basically. He's taken one look at Sam and she's got bits of bramble and bits of nettle and that stuff. That's just what she was like. She had the best life in the world, that dog. Went everywhere with me. But he started having a go at me because he'd taken one look at her and thought it must be mistreated. So we sorted our difference of opinion. Anyway, Fatty settled by the fire and me and CB sat down and had a few beers. Now I had a plan, right? TB didn't know anything about this at the time. I'd got this plan. I've got a mate called Curly Bob. Now Curly Bob's a plasterer. He lives in Fulham, or he did live in Fulham at the time, but he's gone up market. I think he's somewhere like Twickenham now. But Curly Bob lived in Fulham, plasterer, got lots of work in the city, in and around the city. And he'd phoned me up before I came to the lake and told me that it was on this site in Chelsea, right on the side of the Thames, and there was a load of new flats they were building, sort of yuppie flats, and they were all going to be coved. Now that's what I did. I was an artexer and a cover at the time. Now I can slap up, or used to be able to slap up coving, like nobody. Bob, bob, bob. I could fly it up there. And this was £2.10 a metre, this coving, which was good money. It's a 3 metre length. So £6.30 every time you slop up one of these lengths, do a mitre, run along, next one, no mitre. I could fly around a block of flats in no time. So it was going to be decent money. So I decided to take this on because I needed to recoup a little bit of finance. Tench bloke, I didn't exactly love going to work, but Tench bloke, I don't remember him ever doing any work. He was totally and utterly work shy. But I wanted him as a labourer, because when you're slapping it up nice and quick, you need someone to go behind you and sponge it down and clean off the joints. You need someone to be running up and down the stairs with more coving, mixing up your muck for it. You need a labourer if you're going to make any serious money, especially with what I was intended to pay him, which wasn't an awful lot. But I had to put this plan to him. So after about 3 pints, 3 pints in, you get a bit relaxed and that. A few fags or cigars or whatever we had in the pub. I put this plan to him, and it sort of went along the lines of, we'd work in the day, but at night we'd fish at Wraysbury, because it ain't too far from Wraysbury to Chelsea. Traffic is absolutely hideous in the morning, as we were to find out. But the distance involved weren't too bad, and it was better than me going back to Crawley, and then we could sort of have the crack at night and fish, earn some decent dollar in the day. There weren't a lot happening bites-wise for us anyway. It was for Phil, but not for us. And surprisingly, amazingly even, Tench bloke agreed. He said, yeah, that sounds like a plan. I'm like, really? Okay, happy days. So we fished that session. The work was due to start a week or so away. So we fished, we didn't catch anything. But our main sort of thing was we were looking for somewhere that we could bivvy up and the gear be safe enough to leave for the day, every day. And in the end we decided on the Rocky Barge section of the North Lake, because it's the furthest walk on the North Lake. It's a long way from the Douglas Lane. The Rocky Barge swim itself is different now, but then it was a very small swim down the bottom, just a little gravel strip really where your rods went, and then you came up a little slope, and the swim was way above the water level, and there was some woods all around it. So if you tucked your bivvy back in the woods just a few feet, you were pretty much out of view. No one would know you were in there. And I decided I'd looked further along the bank to the left there, where it becomes the sort of back of the finger bays. There weren't any swims. I think there was one right on the end, a little one. But there was a perfect spot to make a swim. So I think it was the Friday, we were due to work on the Monday. We've gone round there, and we've always got tools at Wraysbury. You need them, you need the pruners, as I've said, the secateurs, but you need saws and that. And we had them stashed everywhere. So we've gone round there, me and TB. He's set up in the rocky barge, and we've decided to make this swim down the bottom. Now, it didn't take a lot of making. It was mainly undergrowth and just fallen branches and bits and pieces, you know. Most of it was dragging stuff out of the way and sort of raking the ground. But there was this one tree right in the front that was totally and utterly in the way. If it wasn't for that, we'd have been in like Flint. So we knew this had to come out. But the first day we sort of spent clearing the bit, making enough room for me just about to squeeze a bivvy in there. I mean, the water was only going to be 2 foot in front of the bivvy door. But that was good enough, and it was proper hidden. And right behind me was a little bit of sort of scrub land and a few little copse of small trees and a bit of bramble. And we made a tiny little path through. So only like a few rod lengths behind me, you were in the Finger Bays. And I've said before, that's beautiful in the Finger Bays. Absolutely lovely in there. Gorgeous big green lawn and flowering bushes, and it's lovely. And we had our fire site around there as well. So that was literally just behind me. But if you could walk up and down the Finger Bays, you wouldn't have even seen me. I was down the dip through some trees. So we've done all that, but got all settled in, had a few beers, crashed out for the night, woke up in the morning and decided we've got to somehow get this tree out of the way so I can fish. So we've got this crappy old rusty bow saw. I started sawing, then TB's had a go sawing, and I've had a go, you know. It's taken forever, and we're doing the notch, you know, the old lumberjack notch, so that we've planned which way it's going to fall. So it's not going to fall in the lake, it's going to fall back on dry land, and then we're going to drag it out of the way. Best laid plans and all that. So we're sawing, and we've got to the stage where there's a bloody great crack, and it's sort of gone a little bit. Sam shot off out of the way. We stood right back and waiting. It's not gone. So we're giving it a little push, and it's splintered and it's gone. And as it's gone, it's sort of twisted and just gone bosh straight in the lake, right across the swim. It's a bloody great tree, and it's just gone straight across the swim. So we spent all this time clearing this swim, and now we've felled this dirty great tree right in the front of it. So it's totally unfishable. So we've sawn the last little few remaining strands, got sort of half in the edge and started to pull. God, it weighed a ton. There was no way me and Tench Bloke was getting this tree out on our own. But we tried levering it and all sorts. And then we heard this scrunching in the bushes. Somebody coming out of the Finger Bay down this little hidden path that I'd made. And we were like, whoa, we don't like the look of this. This is supposed to be secluded here. Anyway, next thing, this fella's popped through, big fella and all, come through the gap. He's a German bloke. And he says, I won't do the German accent. He said, I've just come all the way from Germany, he said, flown all the way from Germany. He said to walk round Wraysbury. I'm sure he must have been there for other reasons, but that's what he told us. He'd come all the way from Germany to see the famous Wraysbury Lake. And he was chatting on, giving us some spiel about this, that and the other. And I'm looking at him, and Tench Bloke's looking at him, and I know what Tench Bloke's thinking, and Tench Bloke knows what I'm thinking. We're thinking, he's a big old fella. I bet he could get that tree out of the margins. I don't know how we talked him into it. We didn't have anything to offer him, but somehow we talked him into it. Ends up 10 minutes later, he's in there in the mire, sort of half in and half out the water, sleeves rolled up, and he's got the bulk of this tree, and he's pulling. Me and Tench Bloke got a little branch edge. We're pretending to help, but he didn't need a lot of help. And mate, he dragged this tree out, I'd say between us, but mainly him, dragged this tree out onto dry land. Damn near killed him. And then he thanked us and totted off. Cheers, mate. Well done. Off he's gone, the German fella. And we've logged it all up. It's taken ages to, but at least he's on dry land now. So we've logged it up, chucked it all out the back, ready to dry for next year's fires. And we made a fire that night, like from all the other dry stuff that we'd cleared, like you wouldn't believe. I think that was the night we actually cracked the big brick wall with a fire. It roared. I mean, we were probably 10, 20 foot away from it in the end. You couldn't get close to it. It was so, even Fat Sam couldn't get close to it. It was that hot. We had flames going up in the air. Cooked some spuds on it, and that. It was still burning in the morning. It was still glowing, like sort of cherry red in the morning, which was that would have been the Sunday morning. Of course, we had to work on the Monday. So yeah, we got all the rods sorted. I found my spots, baited up my spots. I had one each side of this island and one about 30 yards out. There was a little clear gravelly bit. Tench Bloke had sorted his swim. We put in our bait, and we thought, well, that's it. What we're going to do in the morning, get up at 6 o'clock, which seemed hideous at the time. Drive to Chelsea, do our work, come back, cast them out. We're going to do that all week. And I'd bought, to guarantee we did get up, or I say bought, I'd brought, probably had it kicking around at home, one of those little, do you remember those travel alarm clocks? You'd have to be quite old to remember the exact ones I mean, but they were in a little clip shut shell case, and a little brass clip on the front, and they'd open up like that, the clock would swing out and go in the clip, and it would make a little three-side, like a little triangle, and they would just wind up. The thing is, they used to clatter and bounce about when the alarm went off. But anyway, I brought one of these along because we didn't have watches or clocks or phones or anything like that. Set it for 6 o'clock the next morning, and sure enough, 6 o'clock, clang, 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 away it went. Got up, shut it down, went and woke Tench Bloke up, and drove into Chelsea, which went fairly well, but the last sort of mile took us absolutely forever because of the traffic. And the same the second day, the last mile took us forever. So we came up with a genius plan by about Wednesday. We decided it didn't matter to us what time of day it was, so we changed this little clock. I think we put it back like an hour and a half or something, or forward, or whichever way it is, so that when it went off at 6 o'clock, it was really about 4:30 in the morning. So we'd get up, drive down to the site. Only the security guard there, he thought we were mad the first day when we turned up. He was there, I don't know, 4:45 or whatever. Got into the site, but then we could leave about 2 o'clock. So we'd get back in plenty of time to the lake. We wouldn't get any traffic either way. We'd get an extra hour's work in. And it all went swimmingly. I mean, Fat Sam weren't too keen, to be honest. She was in the corner of a room as we're working in the room. I just used to throw my coat in the corner and she'd curl up on there. But she used to come back covered in plaster dust and Artex dust, and just absolutely, she was more white than she was black by the time she came back. And we weren't a lot better, to be honest. We were filthy. But this went on for a few days. 1 second. Just want to boost the sales through sneaky advertising. You watch now. When you watch this blog, there'll be an advert for that. I'm going to turn it around the other way so they can't see it. Cheers. So anyway, got to, I think it was the Friday. We're getting a bit fed up with this work lot, to be honest. Fast asleep in bed, alarm's gone off. And it just felt so early, even earlier than normal. I thought, oh God, I ain't up for this. The weather was hideous. There was an easterly wind blowing straight into us by now, and I had the door zipped right down. And like I say, the water was only right in front of me, so you get waves lapping right up to the door. Sam's buried in the back in a little bone print bed. The alarm's gone off. Oh, bloody hell, and I've gone like that. Grabbed hold of it, shut it. When you shut it, it'd stop, and it's still going. I'm like, so I've unzipped the door, and I'm pretty sure my intention was just to throw the bloody thing in the lake. I've unzipped the door, it's pitch black, unzipped the door, and there's a red light, just full on red light there. And I've sort of looked at the clock, looked at the rod and thought, it's not the clock, I've actually got a bite, you know. This was only my third bite. I'd had the one fish, 2, 3, my fourth bite in all at Wraysbury. I'd had 1 carp and I'd had 2 tench, I think. And I've got a bite, you know. Must have been 1st of October by now, something like that anyway. So I've gone flying out there. Looked into this fish, the rod's giving it pathetic little tap at the top. I thought, oh, for God's sake, another tench. So I've started pulling it, and sure enough, it's just tap, 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 tap. Got it halfway in, and it started to be more than tap, tap. It's more of like a fud, fud. I mean, it never turned into anything spectacular, but it was getting heavier and heavier the closer it got. To, you know, just before netting, I thought, this isn't no tench, this is a carp, but it ain't going to be a big one. It'll be one of the little wildy common things or something, or maybe even an odd one if I'm lucky. Anyway, it's come up, and there's a great big swirl as it's gone in the net, and I've pulled the net in, and I've tried to look in, but like I say, it's still pitch black. And I've gone in the bivvy for the torch. I had one of them little rubber workman's torches, the indestructible jobbies that are waterproof, bomb-proof, nearly even laney-proof, but not quite. Anyway, I'd lost the bloody thing, you know, couldn't find it anywhere, so I couldn't really see what I was doing. So I pegged the net out, and I've run up to Tench Bloke. He's probably It's uphill, but it's only about 30 yards to his swim. And I've run up to his swim, shaking the bivvy and kicking the side of his bed and saying, "Come on, Tench bloke." I said, "I've had one." And he's like, "Oh, what?" I said, "Come on, I've had one." "Oh, I don't want, it's too early," and all this proper moaning. I said, "I'll tell you what, if you get up, come down, help me with the fish, we'll have the day off work. How about that?" He was straight out of bed then, day off. We'd only been working for about 4 days. He's come down and we've oiked this fish out and had a good look at it. And at first we thought it was malins, the one I'd caught. Thought my second fish was the same as the first fish, but it wasn't. It wasn't quite as deep. And it had a big group of scales, like a cluster of scales up on the top sort of corner, not top of the back. So we sacked it up, had a couple of cups of tea, waited for it to get a little bit more into a respectable time for me to walk right around the North Lake, over to the off licence, not for a drink, it weren't that time. The phone box was outside the off licence. So I've gone over there and I phoned up Phil Thompson. And he was over the moon. He was yelling and woohoo and what have you. I'd been getting a lot of stick at this time, I must say. I'd done so well at Horton. Far better than anyone really. And then I'd gone over to Wraysbury with Phil, and Phil had, maybe looked stupid really. He'd had by now five carp, and this was only my second bite. When we used to go over to Horton, which was regular for just piss-ups and scrounge at dinner and showers as well. That's where we used to go, for a shower if we stayed too long on Wraysbury or were working, which was rare. We'd pop over there because they had everything over there. And every time I went over there, I got the piss taken out of me. Phil Thompson's mate, that's what they used to call me in the end. "Oh, here comes Phil Thompson's mate. The kids don't know you anymore," and all of this, but it's all, I took it all on the chin. So anyway, but Tomo was over the moon, absolutely over the moon. I'd got a fish, and he jumped in his motor and he drove straight up to do the photos because the Tench bloke weren't all out on a camera. And by the time he'd got there, and we'd had another cup of tea and a smoke, and the sun came out. It was actually quite a nice day, and we took this fish up through the little path into the Finger Bays where it was nicer to take the pictures. Took a few pics of it, slid it back just in the Finger Bay side, and that sort of signalled pretty much not the end of our work, to be honest. We did do a few more days here and there, but it weren't an awful lot. I doubt the whole lot put together was 2 weeks of work, but it was a few £100 a day, so we didn't need a lot. We were living on the bank, we didn't need a lot of money. The odd number 6 from the Chinese, and the off licence got the rest of it, and something to smoke, and that was about us. We were happy with that. So we decided we were going to fish on, maybe not right through the winter, but we thought we were on fish, and we were going to have them. I'd had a bite from Wraysbury at that, I say, just about the beginning of October. Which can be a good month, October. So we plotted up, and that was us. We were going to slaughter them. But those sort of plans don't always work, do they? We never had another bite. Me and Tench bloke never had another bite. Phil Thompson, on the other hand, old golden balls, I'd gone home for a weekend, a rare weekend. So I'd go home and sort my life out, I'd gone home. He seemed to always catch when I was at home. I don't know why. I'd gone home for the weekend, and he fished behind in the Finger Bays. This little, tiny. It's like river fishing. You're in a swim. You have to set back because of the slope of the bank. So you sat up on this flat grass bit that the geese keep all nice and trim. Trees along the front. Not only one skin of trees. It's all very ornamental in there. And if you step down into your gap in the trees, your swim, you're looking 70 maximum to the island, which forms the other side of the bay. The bay is it's not really a bay, it's a channel. It's like a river. So it comes round the island and then bends round through the Party Point and goes off into the South Lake. And the other side, it bends round and goes past the dredger and goes off into the South Lake. So it is really like a little backwater. That's a perfect description. With these beautiful big overhanging trees at the back and then one skin of trees round the near side. So you ain't got nothing to look at. You ain't going to fish 30 or 40 yards. Even if you fish the far bank, it's not very far, but Phil never fishes the far bank. So he'd gone in there and he'd done, must have been the Thursday night in there with nothing, and then he'd done the Friday night in there with nothing, And for some reason, he'd stayed in there for the Saturday night. And that wasn't Phil. Phil was a bit like me. If it wasn't happening, he'd move. But for some, I don't know whether he heard something or whether he just got this big confidence feeling back, or whether he was just chilled in there. I don't know. But to do 3 nights in there, you know, and you're coming into your 3rd night and you haven't had a bite, that was quite unusual, to be honest. Anyway, that night he had two fish. The first one, unfortunately, he'd caught them both before, but that just sort of reinforced what Steve had told us at the beginning, that certain fish, you know, a small percentage of the fish make up a large percentage of the captures. He rebagged the Hoover at, I don't know, it might have been about 36 pounds. I know I put on a little bit, I can't remember the exact weight. And he re-caught Mary's mate, which was the second fish he'd had right down the bottom at 38. He caught that at 40 pound. And I remember that was quite a big deal at the time because that was his 440. I'd had 4 over the road at Horton, and they made they being the papers, made a massive deal of that because no one had done it, and now Phil's got his 440. Phil don't like all that. I mean, I don't particularly, but Phil really didn't like all that, the publicity side of it. But we had, we'd got a deal with Mainline, and we were determined to repay it. You know, we were getting cheap bait. So I think Phil in the end sent the pictures to Steve and said, "Can you do?" You know, from Mainline, said, "Can you deal with it?" You know, don't really know how or what to do. So, you know, Steve did. But yeah, it was quite a big deal at the time to have 4 40-pounders. So yeah, that was sort of the way the winter ended. Phil had now had 7 fish, and I'd had 2, and I knew I was never going to hear the last of it. I didn't realise at the time, but the winter wasn't over for us totally, but it was at that stage, because what we always do in the winter is we go off on a winter tour. Now, a winter tour consists of people like me, Phil Jackson, Jacko, a few close friends, and we go to various lakes, generally day ticket lakes around the country. We have barbecues or bonfires if we're allowed. We drink beer. We have fun, yeah, and then we come back again at the end of the winter. That's all it is. You know, hardly anyone ever catches anything. But this year, Jacko caught, I believe he caught 2 fish from one water and one from another. He was the only person that had a bite, and one of them was from Vinatro down in Chichester, which you probably know of. That's not the easiest water in the world. He turned up last. We'd taken all what we thought were the best swims, and he just went in a weedy corner, threw them out, came round, got drunk, had a bite, and caught a 27-pounder. So that was like, he became the winter specialist that year. But yeah, that was sort of what we got up to in the winter. But we did go back to Wraysbury. We went back to Wraysbury in February, which is quite a tale in itself, and far, far too big a tale to tell you now. So that's going to be for next time. And all that remains to be done today is to actually see if I can use Harry's PC enough that you'll get to hear this one, unlike the last one. But before I go, a couple of things to say. Firstly, I've decided, now I can't remember his name, so I've got to find it. I have decided that a certain fella, who is here somewhere, has won a competition that I didn't even know I was running until he sent me a photo the other day. Right, where are we? It's not that one, 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 and it's not that one. There it is, it's that one down there. I'm so organised. Right, how could I forget that? How could I actually forget that his name's Sam when all I've talked about is my dog Sam? A guy called Sam sent me a couple of pictures, which I'm putting up, of his copy of A Flick of the Tail, which should look like that. Even if you take the dust cover off, as I will, it should look like this. Nice, isn't it? Yeah, that's how A Flick of the Tail should look. Sort of should look. Until you sell one to a carp angler. He sent me a picture of his book, and I decided that I was going to very quickly run a competition for the best loved copy of my book, and he won it straight away, because you ain't going to get better. I mean, it's very crudely held together with insulting tape, its pages are full of dead mosquitoes and splattered blood. It's been dragged around God knows how many lakes. It looks exactly like a carp fishing book should look. So, as a prize, I'm sending him this one. Oh, it's got a couple of dinks in the cover, in the corner there, tiny, tiny little dinks. But I mean, compared to his, it's absolutely mint condition. So I'm going to sign that up for you, Sam, and you're going to give me your address, and I'm going to send that to you as first prize in a very short run competition. But you had no competition. No one was going to outdo you. You won hands down. Talking of books, nice little link there. Like I've done that. Slide that in. Advert coming up. Website address, the link to the website's down below. Go on there, you know what to do. If you want a book, it's all on there. On lockdown, special offer, 25 and 15 plus £3 postage. Postage can take anything. Our record at the moment, not ours, the post office record that I know of is 13 days. Some of them get there 3 days. People order 2 together, one of each. One gets there in 3 days, one gets there in 10 days. There is no rhyme nor reason, so do not panic if it hasn't arrived within 4 or 5 days. There's not one single book that hasn't arrived. And like I say, the longest has been 13 days, which is not good. But, you know, the world isn't good at the moment, isn't it? The post office has rushed off their feet. So bear with them. But any order you put in goes out from us the next day. So, oh, dog's woken up. So there we go. I think that brings us roughly to the end of it, and I'm going to go down and fight with a computer that I don't know how to use. So hopefully later this evening you will get to see this blog. Someone on the drive. Hopefully got a new computer for me, but I very much doubt it. So until that time, cheers. All the very best.